I remember when I saw the first trailer for this game. I was immediately struck by the style and overall aesthetic to the point where I didn't care if the actual game was good or not. I knew I had to play it for myself. I had never seen pixel art so focused and detailed as it is in Blasphemous. Almost in a rotoscope fashion, you see the characters move with incredible attention and personality, accompanied by this beautiful, dark and twisted backgrounds and landscapes. This visual design is enough for me to recommend this game to anybody with an eye for horrific beauty. But what about the game? Is it the Dark Souls of platformers? Can it match its visual quality with the actual gameplay? Will it make a man out of you? That's where it gets tricky to answer. By no means is Blasphemous a bad game, but holy hell is it a frustrating one. Often not the good kind of frustration that makes you appreciate the mechanics and atmosphere, more like, this backdrop is awesome, but I am so tired of seeing it for the 100th time kind of way. But we'll get to that in due time. For now, allow me to guide you through this world as we learn the true meaning of penance. This is the land of Custodia, a reflection of Spanish Catholicism in its most brutal and regret-filled form. We are the penitent one, a man of Cone. You begin nearly dead, hunched over a hill and drowning in identical copies of yourself. This is a perfect example of showing instead of telling, something Blasphemous does extremely well. You're not special, you never were, thousands of others have tried the same journey, and millions will follow you. Your task is also vague. All we really know is everyone must repent before something called the Miracle, an unseen entity that will either punish or bless the people of Custodia in a very real and direct way. The Miracle represents the Old Testament style of God we don't really consider today. Not lessons to be learned or improvements to those who need it, but unsympathetic and downright cruel to those that worship its divine presence. We could see this attitude right from the beginning in the first cutscene where a lady is trying to repent for her sins, and the Miracle, almost in a comedic fashion, turns the idol into a sword that impales her. In a way, I understand this mysterious force. Anyone can beg for forgiveness and repent for whatever they've done, but do they ever expect to truly pay for their sins? There's a character later in the story named Lady Sakura, who begs the Miracle to stop the suffering of those sentenced to death, and in turn was forced to suffer all their pain for herself as pittance. No pat on the back, no blessing of divine intervention. You wanted their pain to go away, but it had to go somewhere. It's this balance of the sublime and suffering that drapes the entire story. From the cursed people you speak with to the item's descriptions, there's a real sense of unavoidable doom. Even those that are blessed usually don't get any better treatment. Or should I say treatment, because the Miracle turns like 3 people into trees. No amount of penance can really make up for the entire generations of suffering that is present in this game, and it makes for a solid and believable atmosphere. After the standard control showcase, you are immediately thrown into a boss fight, just like that other game, and the combat feels good. There's weight to each attack and you quickly learn how important the dodge slide is. The Cone Man gets a quick drink and then he's on his way. You're also taught the parry here and it's nearly perfect. While trying to get the patterns down for each individual enemy, you unknowingly study and appreciate the time and effort that went into each frame. It's in these moments where the game shines the brightest, outside of the crowded attacks where you're surrounded, but that usually only happens when you make the mistake of trying to run through tough sections. The actual character design is at its strongest when you face the bosses. Each one is beautifully unique and requires different methods to defeat. Not for nothing, but these can be unbelievably hard. I beat this game nearly a year ago, and once the Stir at Dawn was released, I then realized you had to play the game on New Game Plus for the added content, and oh man, I was not ready. Every single mob can do up to 1/3 of your health and damage, and until you unlock this Voldemort guy, your bile flasks act like a band-aid on a gunshot. Are you telling me there's no way I couldn't just play the game again on the normal difficulty for the new content? I know it was free, but can you please just chill? We also get a little taste of the Metroid in this Vania with unlocks for the new abilities. Being a second playthrough, I already had most of these unlocked from the get-go and needed a crash course to remember how to use them. This is highly recommended as most of these moves will do much more damage than the original 3-hit combo you start off with. Speaking of which, this does open the floor to what I consider the biggest flaw I have with this game. In my opinion, this game chooses style over function. As great as the visual design can be, it often feels like the attacks from both the Penitent One and the enemies are not balanced by their effectiveness over time it takes to accomplish the move, but more so what looks the best without consideration for the actual controller commands. I kept running into moments where the flow of gameplay worked against the grain of the animation, and felt cheated whenever the design would eat my control input. When you have a game as unforgiving as this, you have to rely on every frame, and so many of these moments are dedicated to the fluid motion instead of the actual effective movement, and it doesn't feel good to lose a fight because you're trapped in an overly long animation over and over. You get absolutely mopped in these boss fights, and usually when you win, it's not because you overcame the challenge, it's that you just got luckier this time than the last 100 attempts. In this way, I feel like I could have had a better time just buying the art book and soundtrack and imagining what it would feel like to go on an adventure. Ooh, that was harsh. But it is worth noting the actual quality of the visual design in the world of Custodia. There's an unmistakable theme to the entire experience, a dark design that makes every frame of gameplay loom over the player, and a journey that is difficult, if not somewhat pointless. We run into these scarce souls and each tell a story without a single word. Every frame clearly invokes the hostility and cold truth of this world that does not care about them. While the care to detail may convey without the use of words, this game is written, and written extremely well. We first meet with Dio Gracias as an acting narrator and witness to our campaign. They do so bound to ropes as their penance is described as the keeper of events, both old and unforeseen in the future. These ropes are a symbol of their purpose, acting as the narrative thread that ties the story together, while the Penitent One acts without any real choice or reason. We are chosen to follow this fate without any real purpose or destiny. It is simply what we do. Early on, we also meet the Kissers of Wounds, an almost lost congregation of healers in Custodia. I think this is a beautiful portrayal of the insignificant resistance to the miracle. While the world is raging in unfathomable torture and anger, the only real opposition to its effects are the likes of an old and forgotten tribe trying to heal these many wounds with kisses without any real avail. Most of these encounters are opportunities to help them with whatever they need to continue their individual path. These are remarkably well implemented and bring a rush of relief when the player realizes that the character before them isn't going to grind their teeth into the pavement. Most of the time these side missions pay off with a useful spell or upgrade, but a lot of it is just for the clarity of the player. In this way we can flesh out our understanding of the world and its dreary magnificence, and piece together our surroundings. Although not necessary, as the player can ignore all the lore and still have a great experience, it is a nice touch and adds emphasis to the atmosphere and context. We are now at my favorite part of these videos, the music discussion. Oh man, do we have a great soundtrack this time. At first the OST reminded me of Tristram from Diablo in a very positive way, the steel hum of guitar mixing with the atmospheric tension, stretching and waning over the course of the measure to a beautiful rise and dissipation. The music takes this initial similarity and runs with it. Through the course of the journey, we are taken through loud and subtle mountains and valleys with the strain of strings trembling between each breath and pluck of the guitar, like a faded tale written in sound that crushes to build upon itself in a deeply post-rock kind of way. I cannot imagine any other soundtrack to accompany this game. The balance of dark and beautiful is always on a razor's edge, for the patient but constant behemoth of sound flows naturally from each area to sell the entire experience as almost a duel between shock and awe. I may have my issues with other aspects of this game's design, but in no way is the music one of these flaws. It's a wonderful practice to offer free DLC to a game that already is at a fair price. A lot of the work done in this expansion is mainly for in-game content, as well as a few quality of life fixes such as full Spanish dialogue option. We can now begin a new game plus with added content only available on the second playthrough. A part of me truly wishes this could have been accessible without the added difficulty to an already hard as nails game, but I guess with the theme of penance and virtuous trials, we can't expect any ease from the developers. It's a weird mix going through this game for a second time. It was annoying to try to relearn all the combos and the spells available to you from the get-go, but by far the worst is the tears. The Penitent one has most of the plot-critical items in their grasp from the beginning, so going through the effort of attaining these will only give you tears of atonement. I cannot begin to explain the frustration of going through a circuit of difficult rooms and challenges and puzzles to finally get to the grand area with an item just before us, and it's like 300 tears. Sick. You already had everything you needed to get on with your journey, but just because your brain demands all corners are discovered, and you never know if that's the way you're supposed to go, and you basically get nothing for your triumph. Look, this game is hard, sometimes downright cruel, but it never pretended to be anything else. I can't say that it's perfect, but when you see how much love and effort Game Kitchen puts into this project to this day, I can't really complain about any of these small hiccups. They are extremely good about getting all these issues patched out, and this free content update goes to show their passion for the title. The total experience stands on the shoulders of giants, Metroid exploration with the From Software coat of paint, but its entirety is larger than its pieces. And what really matters is that it feels like its own project, and the focus pays off with a genuinely unique experience. I recommend this game to anybody looking for a meaty challenge, but I also recommend this game to someone looking for a beautiful experience, especially if you aren't ready for a challenge. This is what we call penance.